Hey guys, welcome back to the part 3 of the home automation tutorial series for the absolute beginners. So in this part, I'll be explaining you how to set up and install the softwares which we require for running the home automation software inside the Raspberry Pi. I hope that everybody know what a Raspberry Pi is. So those of you don't know what a Raspberry Pi is, it's a tiny little credit card sized computer capable of doing all the operations which we do inside our desktop PC. So we will be setting up the softwares inside the Raspberry Pi, as well as we will be using the Docker containers to install all the applications inside this. So without any further ado, let's get started. First of all, we need to install the operating system to the Raspberry Pi. For this, we use the Raspberry Pi Imager, a utility designed to simplify the process of installing operating systems onto the SD cards for using the Raspberry Pis. The Raspberry Pi Manager allows users to select the specific operating system they would like to install, and then the program downloads the latest version of that operating system in the background before the installation begins. Now that we know how Pi Imager works, let's move on to the screen. Head over to raspberrypi.org and download the correct version of the Raspberry Pi Imager. There are versions available for Windows, Mac and Linux. Pop out the SD card from the Pi. Make sure you're using at least 8GB or larger. Plug it into the PC, and using any SD card reader, you're good to go. Once Raspberry Pi Imager has downloaded, install it as you would do with any other program and open the application. You are presented with two options: choose OS and choose SD card. Click on choose OS and select the first option. You can choose the operating system you would like to install. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm choosing this one. There is even a lightweight OS available inside the other options. Then click on the choose SD card button and select the SD card you just inserted. Once you have made your selection, click on the right. This process can take anywhere from a few minutes to about say half an hour, depending on the SD card's write speed. Once this process is completed, a prompt appears telling you that the image has been installed, and it's now safe to remove the SD card from the reader. Since we are just installing the full Raspberry Pi OS, it's intended for use with a screen. So let's connect the Pi to the monitor. Now we have installed the OS to the Pi, and let's install the Docker on your Raspberry Pi. First of all, make sure that the system runs the latest version of the software. To do that, run these commands. So basically we will be updating and upgrading our existing software packages inside the Raspberry Pi. Fortunately, Docker provides a handy install script. For that, just run this command. By default, only the users who have administrative privileges can run containers. If you are not logged in as a root, one option is to use the sudo prefix. However, you could also add your non-root user to the Docker group, which will allow it to execute commands. The syntax for adding users to the Docker group is as follows. You can just provide the user mode command along with the username. Now reboot the Raspberry Pi to let the changes take effect. Now let's move on to the Docker Compose installation. Docker Compose usually gets installed using pip3. For that, we need to have Python 3 and pip3 installed. If you don't have it installed, you can run the following commands. Once Python 3 and pip3 are installed, we can install the Docker Compose using the following command. The best way to test whether Docker has been set up correctly is to run the hello world container. To do so, type in the following command. Once it goes through all the steps, the output should inform you that your installation appears to be working correctly. So now we have done all the environment setup inside our Pi. Now we'll create a Google Actions project inside our Google account. To do that, go to this link and log in with your Google account. Use the actions on Google Console to add a new project with a name of your choosing and click Create Project. Select the home control and click Smart Home. Now navigate to console.cloud.google.com and from there navigate to the Google Cloud Console API Manager for your project ID. Enable the Home Graph API and navigate to the Google Cloud Console API and Services page. Select Create Credentials and create a service account key. Create new service account using the role Service Account Token Creator. Create the account and download that JSON file. Keep this key with you. You will be adding this key inside our Smart Home application. Now download the smarthome.zip file in the description box and unzip and keep it inside the Raspberry Pi. Open the Smart Home folder and you will find a folder named User Files. Rename the downloaded file from the Google project to smarthomekey.json and copy the file to that folder. After that, open up the terminal and run the following commands. Docker Compose build, Docker Compose up. To verify our application started, type the command docker ps and you will find 3 containers have started. Alright, now we have set up the application inside our Pi. We need to provide the URL inside the Google Actions in order to communicate with the Google service. To do that, again navigate back to Actions on Google Console. From the top menu under Develop, click on Actions. Click on Add your first action and choose your app's language. Enter the URL for fulfillment and click Save. On the left navigation menu, under Advanced Options, click on Account Linking. Under Client Information, enter the client ID and secret as sample client ID and sample client secret. The authorization URL which you will get from that link which we have copied just before, as well as the token URL. Now click on Save. On the top navigation menu, click Test to begin testing this app. So in this video, I have explained all the applications which we need to install inside our Raspberry Pi, and in the upcoming video, I will be explaining how to add the ESP device to our Google Home app, as well as getting out most of that Google Home app. So that's all for today. Stay tuned.